All right, we are live on Facebook, and I'm going to go ahead and start recording. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Noelle, and I will be helping to moderate today's program. We love hearing from you around the world, so please use the sidebar chat to share where you're joining from. And we ask that you invite others to join my OCN community. We are a welcoming community available any day, anytime, anywhere. Just a few reminders to please be respectful and polite with the opinions of others as we have our conversation today. Please make sure you remain muted when you aren't speaking, but feel free to share your comments in the sidebar chat throughout the program, and we will have plenty of time for Q&A, so you can post your questions in the chat. You can also use the raise hand feature or just tell me that you'd like to say your question out loud. This is a live program. It's being shared on our MyOCN Facebook page, so hello to our Facebook viewers. And if you're on Facebook, feel free to write your questions in the Facebook chat as well, and I'll be looking at those. We will also be recording this program so that it's available on our website after the show, and you can watch it again or share it with a friend. The Orthodox Christian Network is a 501c3 corporation and 100% donor-supported ministry. So we thank all of those who support us financially, and we also thank those who support us just by sharing the content and engaging with us. We really appreciate all of you. You can find our upcoming community events on our website, myocn.net, on our community calendar, and under our programs page. You can see everything coming up now, and going into the fall, we have a full lineup, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end with our closing announcements. But definitely check out our website, myocn.net, for daily articles, video, live worship, live radio, and a lot of other resources. So without further ado, I will turn things over to our host this evening, Father Gary Kyriakou, who serves as the Metropolis of San Francisco's Pastor of Youth and Young Adult Ministries.
Thank you, Noel, very much. It's a pleasure to be here again. This is our third episode, and I'm really excited about having everyone here. We'll start with a little prayer, and then we'll jump right into it. No sense in wasting any time. The hour is precious, and we'll get together. Let us pray to the Lord. Lord, have mercy. Almighty God, our help and refuge, fountain of wisdom and tower of strength, who knows that we can do nothing without your guidance and help. Assist us, we pray, and direct us to divine wisdom and power, that we may accomplish everything that we do, that we undertake it and do it faithfully, diligently, and according to your will, so that it is not only profitable for ourselves, but to the glory of your name, for you are holy now and forever, into the ages of ages. Amen. I don't make those prayers up. They come out of this little red book. I'm sure all of you have seen this red book somewhere, and I'm sure everyone has owned one. If you don't have one, go get one. And if you don't know where to get one, Noel, if you can find a link and put it in there, that'd be great too, so people can get that. It's a good little prayer book to have, but I'm almost sure that everybody's got one. It's nice to see some familiar faces here and to see some familiar names as well. She's still connecting, her poor thing, to the audio. I wanted to say hi to Mrs. Quintales, whose daughter went to Ionian Village with us, and Amanda Jacobs, who's just down the road from me here, and some young adults, and James, who's a familiar face, and Mariella, who was in my youth group back in Oakland and is now a leader at the Parish of the Ascension. So it's nice to see and be together, and all the people that are live with us on Facebook and listening to this that's been recorded. Thank you for your time and investing it here. We have a very, very special friend tonight. So excited to have her. She goes by Chrissy Zeppos, but her title is Dr. Christine Zeppos. She is a professor and a dean, and she's got a great resume. Christy, why don't you tell us what your education is, what your background is in, and then I'll tell everybody how we know each other and the work that we do together, and then we'll kind of just take it from there and go with our conversation.
Great, Father Gary. It's good to be here and see some wonderful familiar faces too. Yes, my big girl professional name is Christine Zeppos, and I received my doctorate in higher education administration. So I've been Dean of a School of Education and an accreditation officer, overseeing teacher credentialing programs, leadership programs, and doctoral programs in education and transformational leadership and change. So it'll be great to talk with you not only a little bit about education and how that might tie into some things within our ministries, but certainly the work we've been doing with youth and that you've been so critical with in your new role in the Metropolis. So good to be here, Father.
Awesome. It's nice to have you, Christy. Thank you for being here. Christy, when you say transformational leadership, real quick, what is it that we should be thinking of? I mean, because we talk about transformational, we talk about leadership, right? And then transformational leadership is more than just being a leader. A leader is someone who has people that follow them, right? But when you talk about transformational leadership, what's the difference?
So it actually evolved throughout my career how I got to understand why transformational leadership is different and needed, different than educational leadership or business leadership. So often we look at different skills to run an organization, whether it's a school or a business or a hospital. The difference with transformational leadership, it really focuses on the leader and their values. So 4 key components of transformational leadership is it's got to be purpose driven. And the leader needs to have purpose and be very clear on what their values are. And that permeates throughout not only what the leader does, but what the organization does and how they value the people that they work with them. Transformational leadership, the second component is being inspiring. Instead of a dictatorial type of leadership, how do we inspire others of what could we achieve and what could we do? And how do we inspire people to that greatness, which is something that doesn't yet exist? And then it's third, people driven. How do we show genuine care and genuine concern? And is the leader trusted? And I know in today's society, we could use a little bit more of those kinds of leaders that focus on the people and who are we doing this for and how do we treat the people around us? And then finally, the fourth component of transformational leadership is on innovating. What needs to be done? What are the ways that we do things? And what would an optimal world look like? And how do we create and how do we challenge each other to create that optimal world? But also, how do we create an environment where people can fail? Because in order to create a utopia of an organization or a society that we wish, there's going to be risk. And we have to be okay to let leaders fail and others fail around us because that's what's going to take us to that next level of developing something that's truly wonderful. So the way that I came into transformational leadership, though, is in education, we realized we weren't fixing education by simply having educators getting trained by themselves. And instead, how can we have business leaders, healthcare leaders, government leaders, sheriff's department leaders, all learn side by side, have relationships side by side. So as we try and transform communities, learning about transformational leadership principles and working together to be able to understand what does business know and how does education need to provide and educate the children and those in higher ed to be able to be prepared in that kind of society. So it really is leaders side by side with that same lens, having trust and relationships together to be able to create that new community and that new society. So hopefully that gives a little background.
I love that because it's right up the alley of the church, right? And it's right there where what we try to do as clergy is try to transform people's lives and do it in a way that helps people, helps an organization, helps the community, helps different things. So with that, I want to say that you and I have known each other for years. We go back to when we were, I want to say 18 or 19, when we were on the management team together for the Folk Dance Festival. Yes. And we sat in Metropolitan of Blessed Memory Anthony's living room, and he basically assigned us tasks for serving on that team. I don't even know what task yours was, but I know that he made me the liturgical coordinator. So I was in charge of all the services. So I don't know if that planted the seed for what I'm doing now or not, but I think he knew where I was going and had some foresight. But tell me, what do you remember? I was
actually managing him for the weekend, so I had to, get all of the, get him from the various meeting to the next one and to the next one. So I learned a lot about His Eminence during that time, and it was a wonderful experience.
And that's like herding cats when we're moving metropolitans and bishops around, right? But with that, what do you remember, some of the key elements of that folk dance festival? What do you remember about those days of your youth, of participating in things like that? What are some of the great memories you have of that?
It's interesting because at the time we're going through it, I didn't realize how critical it was in shaping the adult that I am. And is one reason that I'm so passionate about youth ministry and so excited with how much you've done with FDF over the years and really focusing on youth, because I think it's critical to the growth of our church. I grew up in San Jose, and so being from Northern California, I was exposed to Goya, and we did Goya activities with Belmont and the local parishes, Oakland and Sacramento. And it was so wonderful to be able to have a structure where we had a lot of fellowship with the other communities. So it was great that we had our core in our community, but really got to expand and get to know the larger community in Northern California. FDF, though, brought it even larger, so that with the Folk Dance Festival, people think, oh, it's all focused on the competition and so forth. That's such the small part of what really influenced me and so many of us is that that fellowship with the kids that in San Diego or in Seattle or Arizona, ones that I would never have known if that ministry didn't bring us together once a year to get to know each other. And that became critical. I didn't realize how critical it would be until later. I actually went then to college in Southern California at USC. And those connections, those kids that I knew from the Southern California area, it was like instant family again when I now moved to a new area and kept me close to the church. I was then going to St. Sophia. They welcomed me to different activities within Southern California, and not knowing anyone, that was again during a time when you're busy in college, kept me close to the church and made sure that I stayed connected with the church ministries and activities. I actually lived in Arizona at some point. I went and got my doctorate in Arizona. So again, FDF had that tie there that those people, in fact, my kumbara, who baptized my eldest, I met through FDF in young adult. And when I moved to Arizona, her family welcomed me in and always had me over for Easter or different events. And that all started from that little stem of the Folk Dance Festival and the young adult ministry, keeping me, again, when I was an adult and maybe wouldn't have been as connected to the church unless I sought it myself, kept that connection alive and well. And so those relationships have been so important in my life. And I think with that youth structure and that way of thinking about we're a larger community and supporting one another, there's a lot of kids that do feel on their own once they leave high school. And if you go off to college, how can we keep them close to the church? And those youth ministries, I think, are critical and why I'm so want to put my energy behind continuing to sustain those kinds of ministries, reinvigorate them, and perhaps reimagine them for kids today. So it's exciting to see that.
Well, let's give you a kumbara shout out real quick. Who's that kumbara? That
Andrea Katsinas, Sia Katsinas.
Awesome.
Yeah, so she was a wonderful, great friend back then and has been such a wonderful kumbara and a wonderful godmother to my daughter, Kathy, who's now a senior in high school. So, it comes full circle. So who knows?
You're totally invested in youth ministry then, having a daughter in high school. And then you have twins that are juniors, or are they sophomores?
They're sophomores. So boy-girl twin that are sophomores. So 3 kids that are actually 18 months apart. So at one point I had 3 kids that were under the age of 2. So while we thought 4 kids would be a good idea at one point, having 3 kids under the age of 2, we said 3 is sufficient.
I saw Amanda. I don't know if I know Amanda from being here in Ventura County, and she's got twin little girls. And so I saw her face when you said 3 kids under 18 months. We had our both boys under 13 months. So we've all kind of been there. It's like going from man to man to zone and defense real quickly.
Absolutely.
I want to know, so you went from San Jose, where you grew up, to Southern California. You invested yourself in the community there. Then you went to graduate school in Arizona. So you stayed in our metropolis, but you zigzagged around a little bit.
I actually left the metropolis for a short time. I actually, after my undergraduate, I did my master's in Chicago.
Okay, how did that shape out? That's what I wanted to know. How did that shape out when you went out to Chicago?
Well, I never used to look at weather, but then it was interesting when I got there. It was 40 below with wind chill. They had the worst winter ever in the winter of '93. But it was great, actually. The young adult ministries were still alive and well back then, and so they had their conferences. And it was great to be welcomed as a young adult to a new diocese. And so many good friends from Chicago that I got to know during my master's time there. So wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think that's why the Archdiocese is so critical. It can't be just things that we do within our metropolis, but how does that connect throughout the United States and perhaps even globally? I think now with technology, look via Zoom, we're all connected in different ways that pre-pandemic we weren't. So how can we continue to take ministries that, yes, need to be face-to-face, but which ones can be virtual as well?
So that's really, really awesome. I love hearing you say that. You could probably drive cross country and be able to stay at a person's house all the way across country, right? Like
Just about.
that's what we, when we're in the seminary, that's the joke that we have, that we make so many friends at the seminary throughout the country that we can drive from LA to Boston and not have to stay in a hotel. We can crash on somebody's couch as we go. I want to ask you, being an educator and you know, having your doctorate in education, what are some of the issues that you see our youth dealing with or our educators dealing with these days? Let's talk pre-COVID and then COVID as well. Like I know that COVID is going to be, you know, online teaching and video conferencing and stuff like that. But even before that, what were some of the issues that our educators were dealing with, and how did some of those issues spill into life in the church?
Well, I think definitely pre-pandemic, we all lived in a different world for a period of time where we were so busy. And sometimes we were busy with activities. We didn't understand why we chose them. But I think things that in education that we continue to see through our children nowadays is they're very stressed in many ways. Many of them don't have responsibilities as a generation ago did, whether it's work or different obligations that were part of family obligations and responsibilities. And so there's more time on me and what do I want versus how am I serving others, or more of a different type of thinking than the previous generation, and where their time is spent. And so from a college perspective, as a college dean, we're real concerned about students being either too enabled and too anxious and really struggling with mental health, and not coming to college necessarily prepared, academically prepared, but perhaps not prepared as a strong individual, an individual who knows what their values are, knows what makes them happy, and often too overactivity per se. And I think that that's one of the silver linings of the pandemic, is that it caused everyone to slow down and spend more time with family, spend more time thinking about what does make me happy, and where do I want to spend my time in the future. The obvious negative of the benefit of the pandemic to kids has been that face-to-face time that they need with one another. And not only my kids, I know your kid's father, and as we see, as we're doing any youth ministry now, it's tenfold is the attendance, because the kids desperately missed it, and they're so excited to have it back. And so how can we look now to recreate those experiences now that they're also looking for a different focus in time, maybe do fewer activities that aren't meaningful to them, that aren't making them happy, that aren't making them feel fulfilled. And then also thinking about with parents too, what are we allowing our kids to do? Are they doing activities that are too much just in sports that coaches force you to do, different travel teams or whatnot, and not things that they necessarily want to do, but they've just been doing all their lives and no longer have a passion. So I think it gives us all a chance to reflect on where do we want to spend that time? Are they happy? And where are they spending that time?
So when I was a brand new parent 20 years ago, now my boys are 21 and 20 and almost 22 and 21, and we got our 13-year-old daughter who's going on 25. But as I was a brand new parent, there was a term that was brought up that was called helicopter parenting, right? Where we hovered over our kids. And I know that as an educator, you know that. I don't know if you can indict yourself as a mom for having been like that either, but I was like right over my boys, right? Like I didn't want anything to happen to those little guys, nothing to happen. So I became a helicopter parent. And as we grew, I realized that I had to let go, back off a little bit. I'm reading now about parents who are beyond that stage, and they're calling them snowplow parents or bulldozer parents, right? They're not just hovering over their kids, but they're in front of their kids, clearing the path because they don't want their kids to have any kind of adversity. Do you see that? And how do you see it?
Absolutely. And it's probably one thing that those of us in higher education see that's so pervasive and are deeply concerned about it. There's a lot of books recently that have been written about it by college deans with the snowplow parents, the hovering parents, because it's leading to kids that are anxious. They don't feel competent to be able to manage themselves at a university and truly as adults, because they haven't had those small opportunities throughout their life to fail or realize I need to know how to do certain things on my own. And it starts from a very young age. I'll give you two quick stories of things that I did with my own children that they hated for me at that moment, but really were these moments for them to build some independence. My twins, one day we were going to California Pizza Kitchen for dinner. That's where they chose that they wanted to go. And they were only maybe 6 years old. And I dropped them off right in front. And I said, you go to the front desk and you say our name and put our name in. And so when I got into the restaurant, they said, no, we were ashamed. We wouldn't want to do that. And I said, okay, get in the car. We're not going to go here now. We're not going to go to see PK, their favorite plays. And they were so mad at me, but I guarantee from that point on, they always went and talked to the hostess or the host and put their name in. And so again, these small baby steps for kids to learn how to do certain things on their own. One other time, my daughter Kathy was in kindergarten, and it was the 100-day project. And in kindergarten, a lot of these parents have these amazing, things that a kindergartner didn't do. And she goes in with a piece of paper and these little labels that she just stuck on a paper. It was absolutely awful. And she goes in and she was so embarrassed because everyone else's looked so bad. And she goes, why did you do that to me, Mom? Why didn't you help me with that? And I said, because you did this and your teacher knows that you did this. And now we know that this is your work. You don't want Mom's work. You want Kathy's work. So again, we need to have these small moments for our kids to learn and to grow from. And I fear too often parents with good intentions are overstepping and not letting kids build that confidence in small ways.
Is it too late to drop my 21-year-old off in front of a CPK and teach him that lesson?
Never too late.
Never too late. It's funny because that my wife Christy is a kindergarten teacher, and she'll come home with the same example that you just shared of the different projects, and she goes, I wonder if these parents don't realize that I know that they did it and that their kids didn't do it, right? So it's good stuff. Elena, my daughter, just hurt her ankle, and her doctor said something to her very interesting yesterday. We had a follow-up checkup, and it's something along the lines of what you said. And the doctor said, you can play soccer if you want, but if you continue to injure your ankle, you're going to have problems with your ankle the rest of your life. Soccer is going to stop, but you're not going to ever get a new ankle, right? And I think about that with some of the stories that you said and the lessons that you shared, and I kind of apply it to our faith, right? Like there's a Sunday morning where when I was a kid, it was sacred, right? Like we didn't do anything but go to church on Sunday mornings. It was like we had no choice. I've got a story I can tell you about how when I got my first job and I didn't go to church and got in trouble. But in any case, that's what we did. Nowadays, it seems like church is being bumped for other projects, right? And so I kind of think, and I say to parents, it's okay every once in a while, but to make it a one thing competing against another, it's like you only get one childhood. You only get one chance at dropping your kid off in front of CPK and teaching them that lesson, right? You only get one chance of taking your kid into the narthex and teaching them the lesson of lighting a candle. You only get one chance at establishing the faith in the hearts of your kids. And if we miss it, there's so much that they're going to lose along the way, right? And even as a priest, I mean, I'm telling you that my kids, I'm the one that answered the calling, not my kids. And so they're not the perfect church attendance kids or whatever, but it's not about them. But what I'm saying is that we all have our struggles in getting ourselves motivated to do things. What is it that you think the church can do a little bit differently to entice families to want to be there on Sunday mornings? How is it that we can do just something a little bit differently so that people on Sunday morning can say, you know what, I really would rather go to church than stay here, or I'd rather go to church than Denny's, or I'd rather go to church than play club soccer all the time?
Yeah, I think there's things that the community, and I think that also parents need to do. Let me start with parents, and then I'll go to the church. Again, we look at the outcomes. Most parents would probably say, yeah, I want my kids to grow up in the church and as adults live a life within the church with their families and so on. But when our actions don't match our words and our intentions, that's unlikely to get that outcome. And so we need to be really thoughtful as parents. If we're not going to church and the kids aren't going to church somewhat regularly, there's really very little chance that your children will as well. So that's just, modeling behavior. It's what we teach in education. If you don't model the behavior, then it's unlikely to occur later on in life. So that's my thought for parents to reflect on. For the church, there's, we always say the best way to learn something is to teach it or to involve people. So the teachers get to learn curriculum even better when they're teaching it. How can we do the same thing for our parents or for our children? Those that teach Sunday school, I guarantee those are your most involved, parents, because they are giving back. They're relearning what maybe we forgot growing up. And certainly, I think there's ways for us to get the children involved, especially high school children. That's where we tend to lose a lot of interest. There's a lot of outside activities. These kids are super smart nowadays. How can we get them involved perhaps in Sunday school and teaching lessons, or perhaps giving a sermon occasionally where they really prepare and try and learn a topic? I know we have the oratorical festival. Some of those speeches are just magnificent. How can we take some of those responsibilities, which also then lighten some of the priest responsibilities as well, and really create a win-win situation that will draw people? I want to go to church because I want that experience. I want to be able to give that sermon, or I want to teach that lesson in Sunday school or whatnot. You mentioned FDF earlier, the kids that teach dance, that are directors. Those are great ways to involve them. Kids can be ushers at many churches. I think that's wonderful, not only again for kids, but parents as well. When you're ushering or you're responsible for a ministry, the more connected we are by doing, the more we feel that we want to continue going. My son, he was actually pretty good in baseball for a while, and then he had to choose to go to its fall ball, which was always on Sundays. And he actually chose not to because he loved altar so much, because he felt he was participating in that and he had responsibilities there and that he liked that. So he actually chose that early on. And don't tell him, but we probably wouldn't have let him do it anyway. It was great. It was great to let him, because he was so involved in the altar, and because he was allowed by Father Bill at our parish in St. Basil's in Sacramento do so much with the incense and the different roles. That made his decision easier to want to be there and not do something that was equally important, or in his mind at that time as a kid, equally important.
So the investment, the investment that the adults around him make are really important as well. Your parents and the clergy and the youth ministers and that as they come around him as well. I'm seeing an issue with a lot of our parishes these days with anybody coming back to church. We've made it really, what COVID really did for us in our parishes, which was really neat, was it finally put everybody on the website map, right? Like there were parishes that were like, I really want to do webcasting and I really want to stream our services online, but I don't know how to do it and it's too difficult and this, that. And when COVID hit, everybody was out getting a camera, everybody was setting it up, everybody's figuring this out, right? So now we've got an archdiocese full of, great programs, and there's people that I know that liturgy hop from their desktops at home, right? But now the problem is, as churches are slowly opening up, how do we encourage people to get back into the church with all the nuances that they have, with people able to watch it on their phones, people able to watch it from their desktops, people watching it from their TVs with their smart TVs and YouTube? How is it that you think the families need to adjust and parenting should change a little bit in getting people back into the swing of things there? What kind of advice would you have?
I mean, I think the first thing is parents need to really listen and look at their kids, and are they missing that face-to-face connection with others? They might be getting it in school, but again, with their church family, we've been open most of the time. We're in Orange County, California, so we've been open for quite some time, but we're just starting, in the fall, the ministries are starting again. It was really interesting this last Sunday. People wouldn't go away. It was the coffee hour, and people were lingering for an hour and beyond, because they were just so excited to have that face-to-face time again. So I think, parents need to really know, yes, it's a pain to get dressed. It's much easier to sit on your couch and watch, but are you doing what's right for your child by not giving him that face-to-face, or him or her, that face-to-face interaction that they value with their groups? And again, getting involved in those ministries that, yes, are time commitments, but they're important ones to build those connections. You can have so much of a relationship in Sunday school, and that's wonderful. And there's, Sunday's a great time to connect, but the outside ministries as well. I know we had Zoom Sunday school for a while, and that can only go so far as sitting side by side with your peer, or being at a Goya meeting together. So I think, those of us that have gotten comfortable with Zooms at night, Zoom meetings, we need to take that time. Yeah, it might take 20 minutes, a half an hour to get to church for a different ministry meeting or if we're going to church, but that value of that face-to-face connection together is critical. We actually have our festival coming up this weekend. We're one of the few festivals that's happening. And I will tell you, this last week and a half of just doing prep side by side with our church family has just been, everyone's so happy. We're happy to see each other side by side again and making, today I was just at the Cardiff church. They opened up their kitchen for us to bake. And it was wonderful being side by side with our friends down there and having that fellowship. I feel better that, we just, as human beings, we need that connection. So I say, let's make that effort because it's important. And again, it goes to that long-term plan. If we want our kids to be a part of the church, we have to model that. And that's an important connection for them.
I love that. I love that. Tell me, if you didn't grow up in the church, how different do you think your life would be today?
Dramatically.
If you didn't have the Orthodox Church, if you didn't have the structure that you did as a kid, and granted, I mean, I look back on my life and think, and I'm assuming the same with you, but we were born into it, right? Like we really didn't have a choice. There wasn't a time where I said, I'm going to walk in those doors and see what that smell is and what those candles are doing. It was just kind of part of my life, right? But how do you feel, and do you ever sit back and think how different life would be if you weren't an Orthodox Christian or if you weren't raised in the church?
Absolutely. It's, people sometimes tell me, you have this calm and confidence about you and you seem always happy. And I tell them, there's certainly adversity, lots of adversity that's come my way in my life. But the one thing that I've always felt has been able to be that rock solid, aspect in my corner is orthodoxy in my relationship with God and which those other values of family within the church and so forth have made that confidence be so pronounced and make it such a happy life. So I'd be totally different, I believe. I think so many people that I know outside of the church that are still searching for happiness or searching for that calm, so to speak. In the times of most adversity, I say a prayer and there's been, a lot of huge challenges in my life. And actually one of my largest challenges, my father had recently passed away right at that time. And I almost felt that was the time that God needed to take my dad because he needed to be with him to be able to continue to give me that additional strength from a different place. So, and I think that all came through the church and through the ministries that I've learned through the church. And I know you are so involved with the camps. Those camps are critical for that deeper relationship, especially as a young child, to get closer to your church and to get closer to the clergy. And if I can compliment you for a second, you may not even realize this, but my kids would go to St. Sophia camp and you would be there. And several years ago, my kids came home and they were starting to chant different hymns and, tell me different things that I'm like, wow, I didn't even really know that and so forth. And they enjoyed it and they loved it and they couldn't wait to go back. They couldn't wait. You were like a rock star to them when they'd ever see you at different ministry events. And that connection is key. And that's given them so much different types of confidence in life too, that their peers at school that aren't part of our church, they just can't have that same extent. So it's a huge compliment to you and the ministries that you oversee and why I'm so happy that we're going to hopefully expand those over time as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your parish priest, Father Bill Tragus, was an influence like that for me as well. He's just a few years older than me. He was my camp counselor growing up. But one thing I remember about Father Bill is that he would always invite his high school friends from his high school to church events. And he converted a couple of them. He brought a few of them into Orthodoxy and that they're still out there in Torrance, Redondo Beach, and they're still part of the church in their adulthood and in many ways like that as well. Look, with all the different ministries that we have in the church, I think that there's something for everyone, right? Like every kid can find their niche and get in there and go. I know you were on the meeting last week when we had Michelle on here. One of the questions I asked her, and it's funny because all of my guests for the first 3 to 5 weeks are going to be women, and you all are very, very strong women. And I'm like, I haven't even thought of a male guest yet because I'm just like, I've got all these like women that I work with and that are part of everything that we do that just have such a strong personality and a love for the church. And I want to ask you as well, how do you see the role women in the church, and I don't know if you remember Michelle's answer. I know Michelle's answer, and I'm talking about Michelle Mujayas from Faith Tree, who was my guest last week. She talked about the Theotokos and looking to her as the greatest example, right? When you think about your role in the church and the things that you want to do, how do you feel? How do you resonate? How do you do that? Because I'll tell you what, my wife, God bless her, keeps me grounded, right? You know Christy, and a few people on here know Christy. Christy was like, look, about 3 or 4 years ago, she said, we got to start some sort of special ministry for the girls in the parish. And don't tell me it's going to be cleaning. They're not going to clean and they're not going to bake. So now what? And I was like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Like, you know? And so we worked it out and we came up with this great program called the Myrrh Bearers, where they would read everything that they could. They would read the epistle, the Lord's Prayer, the creed. They would do all kinds of stuff. They started wanting to chant. There were kids that couldn't wait to get to the chanter stand to read and do those things. But when we see young women in the church, you, Michelle, other people that are part of different parishes and different things, what is it, what kind of advice or what kind of encouragement could you give to young women who want to serve the church and to do things?
I'm glad you asked that, because if you asked me 20 years ago, I struggled with this more so, because you can look at our church and, see it very patriarchal, and the men are, it's, women is perceived as are not treated as well. And over the years and getting, more involved and deeper. And as it relates to what I just said about transformational leadership, a lot of those elements of transformational leadership, women often do better. It's easier to, show the caring and the trustworthiness and the people-centered and different ways of being inspiring and thinking in different ways. Which is one reason I think that, you get along well with so many of these women, because I think we think very similarly. There's different ways to get objectives and important roles done within the ministries and with the church. And so I've actually, gotten more involved in more female-based ministries as well. I'm now on the Philiptohos, not only within the metropolis as first vice president, but I'm also on the national committee, the national board, and the head of the leadership committee. And so we actually talk about just this, that how can we have leadership and mentoring of girls in our church and mentor young women. And so the leadership group is actually coming up with a formal proposal for a mentoring networking group for young women to work with older women or more experienced women, either in different disciplines or different skill development and so forth, actively in a formal way. There also is an opportunity for different engagement. How do you learn different skills? How do you run meetings and so forth of young girls? And so that could lead to different things that they could do within their parishes, preparing them for, again, presidencies of parish council, leading other different ministries, whether it's the ones that we already have in Goya, et cetera, but coming up with new ones as well. But also reimagining service. And that's been falling on women more so. And how can we work side by side with the men of the church that Philiptohos is for everyone. It's the service arm of the church. And so I think that gender role and how we look at that is changing to a certain extent. But I think there's definitely opportunities for women to lead and to also maintain that women supporting women emphasis. I think the Myrrh Bearer idea you have is a great idea. And I think it's important, just like you said, sometimes just to state the important role of women and girls in the church. Sometimes it's not stated as often. And also for clergy to welcome women into different roles. Actually, His Eminence has asked me recently to help with clergy continuing education.
I was trying to find a way to sneak that in there, because I think that's brilliant, right? Like, that's so great. And I want everybody to understand exactly what you mean by that. And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna like put you on a little bit of a pedestal. Oh. The Metropolitan of our metropolis, Metropolitan Gerasimos, has a continuing education program for his clergy in the metropolis. About 95 to 100 clergymen, right, over the 75 different parishes that we're in. And he wants us all to have continuing education. Who has he put in charge of that program to find ways to teach us about leadership, about running meetings, about doing different things, about transformational leadership, he put Dr. Christine G Zeppos in charge, a woman, which I think is brilliant, and I love it. Can you tell us where that's going and what some of the things are that you're learning about our clergy and what we need to learn? What the Holy Spirit can fill for us, and if the Holy and I know the Holy Spirit's going to fill it for us, but what is it that we're missing as clergy that we can learn from some of you use the great word discipline, from your discipline?
Yeah, well, and it's great because it's wonderful to see, in the education world and how that applies. And I'm so honored that His Eminence, trust me with this important project. But we're in the very early stages. So right now we're on an assessment of what's been done, what kind of continuing education has happened in the past. And I'm actually going to be connecting with the new Vice President of Academic Affairs and Provost at Hellenic College to see what are the outcomes that clergy are supposed to be coming out with at the college level, and what things do an assessment 2 years out, 5 years out, and 10 years out that clergy wish they knew more about. And that we're going to develop and scaffold curriculum and programming that will hopefully achieve those needs. So and maybe change some things at a clinic college too, so that if 10 years out, clergy still feel that they need more in leadership development or in, giving that amazing sermon or whatnot. Our role in accreditation at universities is to assess and then integrate back into the curriculum. So hopefully it can be a synergy back with Hellenic College and our new Vice President of Academic Affairs, and who is a woman and from California, and so that we can make that connection. So we're right now in the assessment phase, and then there definitely needs to be a survey of the clergy. What do you wish you knew more about? And this has to be anonymous so that people feel comfortable. Boy, I really do wish I knew a little bit more. And it can't be continuing education that is just me, professor, to you, clergy, and I'm going to impart my knowledge. But what's ongoing, and maybe there's things that are skill development that needs to be practiced a few times. Maybe it's a peer mentoring type program of a veteran priest who does something well and works side by side with priests that want to get better in that regard. And long term, I know this might be controversial, but also listening to our communities. Assessment is key in any aspect of education, and getting honest feedback from others on what they wish they had more of will certainly play a part into this as well. That how can we have just simple surveys that can be done of what could be done, what would you like to see more of to engage you into church or into ministries? We don't do that well in the Greek Orthodox Church, and in a lot of organizations we don't do well with assessment. But I can tell you how critical it is hearing feedback, and when you respond to feedback, let's say it's starting church on time or whatnot, and when you respond to that feedback, hey, I've heard the feedback and I'm going to be responsive to that, you'll see the buy-in from others because, hey, I was heard. And they are trying to address that. That certainly can make a difference in how people feel engaged in the church. So that's just a little bit of what we're starting to work on, but it is a multi-year project, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Awesome. Noelle, do we have any questions from anybody around the different social media outlets?
Yeah, so one question is kind of relating to what you were talking about before with youth challenges. Is there a different way that we approach trying to reach out and support our youth now that many of them are experiencing challenges, whether because of technology or because of COVID, that their parents did not experience, don't understand really? I'm wondering how you see maybe just your thoughts on that in general, I guess.
For Father, or would you like me
Chrissy,
to?
I'll let you answer that question first.
Okay. I definitely think there needs to be some parent education, especially in many parents fear technology, and so they can sometimes be extreme one way, which only makes children want to engage in technology in different ways or sneak or hide. I think we need to do a better job of having kids understand the power of technology, having open discussions like with my teenagers. Hey, when you continue to see these kind of images and when people are doing these selfies and so forth, how does that make you feel about you? I think we could do a better job with parent education on how to have those kinds of conversations. How do you put limits on various technologies? There's a lot of different technology. I know I've taught some people on this call, the use of screen time, that you can put limits on how much, Instagram they can use or how much of X app they can use, so that you are fully in control of your child's use of technology. It's the fear because they don't know what it is and what are those dangers. So perhaps that could be something that we do with parent ministries. But there is beauty of technology too. And so where's that middle ground of technology connecting people, technology informing and gathering people together? But where do we also caution when it's too much or it's taking away from that face-to-face time or how I feel about myself? And that is a problem, and it struggles for many kids. Father?
I always go back to stories that people tell me and things that I hear. And a funny story is Father Photios Dumont up in Seattle is a huge Dodger fan. And my brother goes to church there, and my brother is another huge Dodger fan. So Father Photios noticed my brother sitting in the pews looking at his phone the whole time. So when he came up for Andidron at the end, Father Photios looks at my brother and says, "What's the score of the game?" And my brother goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You're looking at your phone the whole time." My brother says, "Oh, this is before a lot of those apps that we had. This was several years ago." He said, "Oh, I have the liturgy on my phone and I can follow along from my phone." And Father Fudge is like, "That's brilliant, right?" This was many years ago. So there's great aspects to technology that we can utilize, right? And then there's ways that technology can just make us lazy. When the person says, "I'd rather sit at home and watch liturgy on the internet because I can stay in my pajamas and I don't have to worry about doing anything." That's not what liturgy is about. Liturgy is about interaction and communion and being together. And you can't receive the community aspect of it and the sacraments by sitting in your room with your pajamas on, right? However, it has given the opportunity for people that are shut in their homes to be able to listen to the liturgy and listen to sermons they wouldn't be able to get prior to it all. So there's a whole bunch of different aspects of it. I think that we need to realize that our kids are no longer learning how to use technology. They're creating the technology. They own it. It's theirs now, right? And I don't mean to shout Amanda out, but her kids are the quintessential Generation Z, right? Like they were born with the iPhones. So you look like at a little 5 or 6 or 7-year-old, they don't know life before the iPhone. And we got to figure out ways that we can communicate with them and make the faith real for them in a way that allows them to interact in the world that they know. One question that came up a lot, so I don't mean to talk a lot, but I saw Paula Huntalas is on here as well. Her daughter went to Ionian Village this summer. And one of the things that we talked a lot at Ionian Village, and something that I would say over and over again was, you guys have it so hard these days. You guys have it so hard these days. And one of the young people from Ionian Village pulled me aside and said, "We don't know it being any different. This is how our lives have been. So when you tell us we have it hard these days, we don't know what you're comparing it to." And then I thought to myself, well, I'm comparing it to me, where when I left school, I left all the bullies behind. When I left school, and there were 3 channels at the time, I had 3 channels to choose from, right? And if I didn't like it, I went outside and played until the lights went on. Life is so much different now. And I think that the church needs to adapt and figure out ways to get the message to our kids in those 15, 20, 30-second sound bites that they need to learn to get it. And so if there's anybody out there that knows how to use TikTok, give me a call, because I'm dying to figure it out and make some videos to get the kids going. There's a question on chat here. Do we have programs or ministries that focus on helping to support parents to build a little church and how to keep our kids in the church? Poya, parenting in the Orthodox Church. Yeah. The Family Wellness Ministry of the Metropolis of San Francisco, Amanda Jacobs asked that question. Our metropolis here in San Francisco has a family wellness ministry. And if you go to their website, you're going to find a whole bunch of tools there to use. If you go to www.sanfran.goarch.org, that'll take you to that ministry website, and you'll find a whole lot of information there that you'll be able to use. Also, the religious education website for Metropolis, go to goarch.org, and you'll find stuff there as well. I think we took a long time to answer that question, Noel, sorry, but are there any other questions?
There's not any more questions from social media, but I actually wanted to maybe sort of a follow-on from Support for Parents. What about support for older young people or young adults that want to transition into more leadership roles, but sort of don't know how to make that transition from being in Goya or being a more passive participant in YL? I'm on my YL board, which is like new for me. It's a challenge for me, but it still feels like there's a gap between the leadership of YL and church leadership overall, that one wouldn't necessarily feel that they know how to make the jump from leadership in YL to actually, later in their adult life, leadership in the church.
Real quick, my answer to that is really quick. And my answer to that is we need to educate the parish council members on how to let go and allow the younger people to come up and come in. I think that's where the education gap is. I don't think that we need to teach our young people how to do it. I think they're willing and ready to do it. I think we got to teach the older people to let go and let other people have their seat at the table, right? I know that I'm pointing out Amanda Jacobs again because she and I are familiar with each other here in Camarillo. But there were conversations at the parish here at St. Demetrius and Camarillo about getting young people involved. And we always heard it from the older people. Yeah, we can use their help setting up tables and chairs. Well, the young people don't want to set up tables and chairs. They want to sit at those tables and chairs. They want to make the decisions that you're making and help that. They just don't want to set things up and move things around. What do you think, Chrissy?
I can't agree with you more. And I think that's something that we really need to work on as an archdiocese, as a metropolis, as communities, because the progression from joy to hope to Goya to YEL to the conduit of being, parish leaders, parish council members, and succession planning in that regard, or leaders within the various ministries of the church, we haven't articulated well, and we haven't let go. We haven't given the kids, just like you said, Father, empowering is critical. We need to give them the opportunity to have those leadership roles. We have to step back and sometimes let them fail, not major fails. I mean, we need to intervene if they're going to be a large fail, but, and communicate and allow them to communicate in ways that are now meaningful to them. We learned on our Philipto's leadership call, if you want to get a kid involved from age 14 to 22, an email is not the way. That's the last place they're looking. But if you do an Instagram or a DM or a TikTok, that's the way that they get actually important information. We think TikTok is just looking at for a dance or whatnot. No, they're communicating events or places to be, or showing up at a meeting via these modalities that are very foreign to our generation. So we need to step back because they're communicating with each other in different ways, and they're quite capable of leading. So we need to make sure that we do that. And with young adult, I think that's a wonderful opportunity. Parents can help start things, but then we need to move away. Father knows that a lot of the young adult, the conferences started with a small group of people in the Denver diocese. My sister was one of them, saying, well, these were important ministries to us. How do we bring it back? And then they started it within Denver, and then it came over to San Francisco and has now flourished. So, we need to support and help these things happen, but we also need to release and allow the youth to run these ministries with oversight by the clergy in the metropolis and the archdiocese.
Absolutely. I love what you said too. And I think I know what you mean by when you say allow them to fail. Can you explain just what you mean by that a little bit more? Because when we think of fail, I think of like not being prepared and then, messing up on a test. And that's not what you mean. When you say fail at doing something, explain what you mean by that so that we can allow that to happen.
Yeah, it might be, holding a certain meeting or getting the wrong vendor for an event or whatnot that you can see as an adult, wow, that's probably not the best choice. But if the youth, vote on this and they're passionate about this, speaker or whatnot, sometimes there has to be ownership of that. And if no one shows up or whatnot, okay, well, maybe how did we come to that decision, and have them reflect and have them learn so that they can learn how to make better decisions in the future. Or maybe it's on a day that nobody's available and they didn't think about how to communicate to be able to get a consensus on dates. So I think there's lots of leadership moments that these kids need to have and to learn, okay, there's different ways to build consensus, there's different ways to plan. And as adults, we're better at it because we've been doing it longer. And so how do we allow our kids to have those same building moments? And sometimes it's not going to be successful. So I think those are just as important as those successful events as well.
Sometimes it might be more successful, right? They might teach us, they might be able to teach us something as well, which is great. I really appreciate your time today and everyone being on here as well. Want to give any more questions pop up real quick, Noel, in the time that we were there? If not, I wanted to ask Chrissy to share what's happening at her parish this weekend and how we can get more youth involved if they're in the Orange County area. Or, I mean, it's only a 90-minute drive from where I am. So if I didn't have a wedding, I'd be down there. But
yeah. Thank you, Father. We actually have, again, our Greek festival this weekend, and what we've done in Southern California is we actually have a group that we designate a SoCal Goya night, so that one night we say all the kids come on this one night so they can have fellowship together. So we have that at our church in San Juan Capistrano. I wasn't able to post the flyer, but here's the information. It's at the San Juan Community Center. We're going to have a band, food, of course, and lots of fellowship. And I know we already have about 4 or 5 different parishes from Southern California already coming and bringing their youth. So if anyone else is in the Southern California area or beyond, and you want to go for a fun night of fellowship, we welcome you and would love to host you.
And so I'm so happy that you guys are doing your Greek Festival. I know that there's one being planned out here for Ventura County as well. So important for people to get together as we move through this all as well. Noelle, any other business we need to take care of before we wrap it up here?
I'll just announce our upcoming programs. So on Thursday, we have a new series for Let's Talk Live at 7 p.m. with Father Stavros Akrotirianakis. That's talking about some of the things we talked about today, which is getting people back to church, getting people back to normal life, even as we're still recovering, still transitioning, but how can we remind people of what it really means to live a Christian life. So this will be the first in that series. That's this Thursday. Our adult education with Michael Haldas is moving back to Sundays live. It'll be live on YouTube. You'll be able to find that information on our website, but it's going to be live on YouTube right after church on Sundays. That's streaming live from St. George in Bethesda, Maryland. And so that will be starting on not this Sunday, but October 3rd will be the first one in that series. And then on Wednesdays, we have The Real Deal with Father Michael Marcantoni. That's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday on Facebook Live. And on the 6th, October 6th, we'll have our Living Icon program back with Father John Vlahos. And of course, every week we have this program, Armed with Faith, on Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. And we'll have some more things coming up in October and November that we'll be announcing. So stay tuned for those. And I'll turn things over to you for our closeout.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Chrissy, I want to thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy, 3 kids in high school and all the things that you do for your church, the metropolis, the archdiocese. So thank you for your time, for being here and being such a good friend and being supportive of what we do, because I know you're not just supporting what I do, but you're supporting what the church does in making life better for our kids and giving them the opportunity to grow in Christ and to have the same experiences that we did, so that our grandkids can share in what we have participated in also. I want to thank everybody who's here on the screen with me. I wanted to ask Sarah Coker, is Emeryville, California, or is that a different Emeryville? I don't know if she's still listening.
Hi, sorry. I'm in my classroom. I was washing dishes.
Yeah, and then I noticed you were in a classroom as well. So you're a teacher.
Yeah, I have my headphones on. It's Emeryville, California. It's in Northern California.
Yeah, right outside Oakland, right?
Yes, really close to there. Yeah.
It's the home of Pixar. We took kids, I don't know if Mariella remembers, but we took kids to Pixar when I was the assistant priest in Oakland as a reward for being part of Vacation Bible School. So that's a great way to get kids to come. When the kids learned that I was taking them to Pixar at the end of the week, they all came to Vacation Bible School. So it was a lot of fun. That's a great way to get them there. God bless you all. God bless you all. Thank you very much for being here. Nice to see so many familiar faces and making some new friends. Again, Chrissy, deep thanks. Give my love to your family, to Demos, and to everyone down there. And have a blessed festival this weekend. I hope it goes really, really well. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Father. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.